Hi, everyone. So I think it's pretty clear that they have really big social and economic policy differences. One of the main things that we've noticed is immigration. Joe Biden has been really receptive of immigration, while Donald Trump is obviously against it. We also have a lot of issues we do not have a lot. So if anyone else wants to take it while I fix that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think they differ. You know, Trump and the RNC only recently released their platform, and it was kind of vastly different and a lot more right wing than Joe Biden and the DNC. For the DNC is too moderate, or that Joe Biden's too moderate. A lot more left than any other moderate that we would see, and I think I can't think of a single issue where the two can agree on something.
Yeah, I definitely want to add on that. From like what they differ on is really also in the climate justice space, where Trump just wants to continue to open up and deregulate America, to focused on fracking and coal refineries and oil. And we've seen in 2017 the fracking revolution in America. While under Trump, we're going to see more, the continuation of the climate crisis. But under Biden, we're actually going to see real policies that uphold clean air and clean water and actually safeguard our future. Like with Kamala Harris's standpoint when she was running for president, she really talked about how the EPA will now have regulations to enforce these policies, ties clean air and clean water. And also, he's going to actually make sure that we reach zero emissions by 2050 and really have the most aggressive climate plan that's been put forward around the world that can be enforced and really avert a lot of the climate disaster that we're seeing right now. So that's really how they differ, is that one is going to actually protect our future and the other is just going to light really America on fire. And as we're seeing right now in California, the entire conversation of climate change has been erased. So.
About Trump, what are the biggest differences in his policies from the 2016 presidential election to now? Like what has changed? Because obviously we know immigration isn't as big of a topic this year as it was in the previous election. So what else is kind of changing? We know they're not talking about climate change, which is something that I believe that they should be talking about. It's something very important. It affects all of us and our futures. So what else really differs from his 2000 campaign?
In 2016, he wasn't incumbent.
Ryan was one of the ones that had trouble with his audio because my mom texted me, said they couldn't hear him.
Hey everyone.
Okay.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Sorry about that. We were having so just bear with us. We're still learning how to do this entire live thing. About the New York Times, how it recently came out with leaked allegedly tax documents from the past.
Not just corporations that want to lobby you, but unaccountable to the people in our and like really system, and like really it also goes beyond held accountable. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do as Americans? What do we stand up for? And like we see that like under Biden's plan, the top 1%, we're going to have the top 1% less in their 17% less in their income to working families that are in America, working hard families that are in America, working hard for day-to-day. $75,000.
So Gaffney, what do you think about all this? You know, all the whole tax straight. What do you think?
I went back and thought it when I first saw the article. 700 he paid dollars in taxes in 2017. I thought about how that's about 3 weeks to a month of minimum wage for me. That's about what I put into taxes every month. For $10 an hour. And then it also occurred to me things talk about how our tax system it's not sustainable because we're putting in all this money into the system, but then it just never seems to come back out. And I'm like, well, there are people who aren't putting enough into the system. But when I was making those arguments, I was assuming that maybe tax evasion was a much smaller situation than it actually is. But now that this has come out, and the way that I'm what I put in a month. I can't fathom. I'm still trying to come to terms with this idea that this man has the human better than this country. And so far, we have not proven him wrong. He's been getting away with it. This is all legal. He was able to make those write-offs, and the IRS said nothing. And now he's being audited, and hopefully that brings about change. But who are we to say that
taxes and contribute to society like everybody else does, and it goes back to Amazon too, not paying any in federal income tax or any in federal taxes, and it's frustrating to see how they can get written off and all these people are getting evicted because they can't even get a simple break for their rent and they can't afford groceries.
And while that is frustrating that private business paid nothing in taxes, that's a whole separate branch. We're talking about a man whose base is majority white conservative military members, people who back the blue. And right now, Donald Trump is refusing to participate in paying the salaries of his base. People who work in public service are not being paid enough because Donald Trump didn't pay his taxes.
Right. Sophia?
I think you guys are bringing up really great points. The fact that average middle class family does not pay as much in taxes. They pay more in taxes rather than the United States, who's claimed to make billions of dollars is absurd. And I think that's something we'll see come out on the debate stage tonight more than once.
It'll be fun to see how that plays out because he hasn't really had a chance to speak about it except for kind of deny it. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes and where Joe Biden takes that.
But even made that Trump tax much calculator to see how much more taxes than Donald Trump, and I think things like that will definitely be coming up tonight.
Yeah, and also that really appeal to an audience that Trump does not appeal to, which is Gen Z. It's like little quirky things sounds kind of dumb, those do actually appeal to Gen Z. That was kind of a genius idea. That was kind of a genius idea, I'm not going to lie. But I wanted to get into our next topic, our second Supreme Court. The Supreme Court. So as we know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, also known as the notorious September 18th, passed away September 2020 of this year. She went on record stating that she didn't want the president to use her as a political pawn and to use her as nominate another Supreme Court justice. Obviously, we've seen all the talk about it. We've seen all the talk about it. It's kind of it's happened very, very quickly. A bunch of people are already involved in this whole situation. What is Justin? Will Trump nominating a new justice affect his numbers?
The nomination is going to have kind of a twofold. Solidify his base, and the shameless conservatives who just 4 years ago were saying don't fill the seat, leave it open, and they left it open for a year under Obama, and are now the same people that want them to fill it. And I mean, it goes beyond just his voter base. It goes to Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell. They had very strong opinions about what they should do in 2016, and they just have completely they're in charge. So I think it's definitely gonna solidify his base. It's gonna make his base more eager to go out and vote for them. It's going to make his supporters eager to go out. But I think on the other hand, for his supporters, more moderate voters and more liberal voters, it's obviously going to hurt him a lot. And I think those voters are more able to see the hypocrisy from the same people, 4 years ago that were saying we shouldn't fill it, to now, she's not even dead today, and Mitch McConnell's already saying that he's going to put a new nominee up for the vote. And I think the people that aren't in the Trump base are going to realize how disgusting it is and how just wrong it is, especially so soon after.
So how do you think this is going to hold up with, or Jerome, did you want to say something?
No, I was just thinking of the fact that, like, even beyond just like what we're talking about, like whose base is going to be empowered by this, but this is like an erosion of American democracy at the baseline of it. When one party doesn't follow the rules and another party is still trying to follow the rules and procedures of American policy, then it's like, how do you win? Because right now we're seeing that they're filling up court seats, they're filling up the Supreme Court, they're trying to figure out how to subvert American voters. So if there's a discrepancy, we can just sue them and then go to Supreme Court and win the election. That's not even remotely democratic when we think about it. This is an entire shift in how America works. So when we think about this isn't just whose base is being amplified, but how do we see ourselves as Americans and what future do we want to see? And like, it comes down to that, really.
Yeah, and speaking, of our future, obviously we're all about Gen Z here. This is open for everyone. How do you think that this is going to hold up with Gen Z? Because even the most conservative Gen Zers / Zoomers tend to be more socially liberal and seem to openly empathize more on social media. So how do you think this is going to hold up with Gen Z alone, and actually more specifically the conservative Gen Z?
Our generation is probably one of the most civically informed. We have massive access to information. We consume massive amounts of information every day at an unprecedented rate, unbefore seen in any generation. We have the ability to understand more things than our generation, this exact crop of people, and put us 50 years sooner, we wouldn't have anywhere near the politics that we do, because it's not just about our DNA, it's about our ability to consume media. And part of that influences how we understand politics. We get to see live updates 3 times a day about the progress of political change. We are hearing constantly about the Supreme Court and Congress, and individually the House and Senate and the White House. So you've got an entire generation now that became sort of parasocially attached to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That was a recognizable name. She was a household person. And now we see her being treated very disrespectfully in her memory. Media that we consume, media that we came to trust, by people who we also know. And even if you don't exactly understand all of the political intersections of how people align themselves on the political spectrum, you still understand that they're not being respectful of someone's memory.
Yeah, and last wish was that her seat not be filled until a new president is elected. And I think what you guys are all saying is right. Like, it is disrespectful. And I think Gen Z just is going to find that really wrong in so many ways.
So what do we think about Amy Coney Barrett? I always mess up her name, so I have to say it slow. But do you think that the conservative Gen Zers will be inclined to accept her into this, because she is going to most likely be on the Supreme Court? Well, she will be, because it's a life thing. But do you think that Gen Z is going to be kind of willing to accept the fact that that's something that we won't be able to change if Trump makes this decision right now for everybody?
I don't think she's going to be embraced warmly. But she is significantly younger, and I think her age probably plays a big part in why she's being. I know that she's going to have a long, long run on the Supreme Court. If it happens, this woman has years of service in that seat ahead, and with her politics, with her alignment, she's popular among socially progressive Gen Zers, but she's going to be someone that we have to come to know. She's going to be a name like AOC for our generation, but because she is so young, and until we establish a mandatory retirement age for the Supreme Court, this is going to have to stand. She'll serve just as long, if not longer, than RBG.
If we could go into her past judicial record, I believe we talked about this in the podcast the other day, but I still find it hard to believe that she's actually referred to as a handmaid, and I just feel that's a perfect metaphor, because the fact that she refuses to separate her faith from her work and her judgment is going to be a really big issue moving forward. This is supposed to be a secular country where people can be guided by faith, but faith does not participate in government. So having that, just having her be there, making issues not based on what the Constitution says, but based on what her faith says, is definitely gonna cause issues and rifts within the Supreme Court, especially when you have so many judges, even conservative judges, who guide themselves based on what the Constitution says, and they read it literally. They don't interpret it. They just read what it says, and the Constitution clearly says that religion should not be part of government.
Santiago, I think that ties into an important point I've kind of been seeing, is that, people on the right are now saying, like, oh, you don't want her on the bench because she's religious and this and that. But what they keep forgetting is that Joe Biden himself is a Catholic, but he's able to separate his Catholic faith from governing because he doesn't believe that it's his right or the church's right to enforce that on anyone. So I think you bring up a really good point that it's fine to have those views and follow whatever religion you like, but at the point where you can't separate it from your judicial decisions or your legislative actions, that's when it starts to become an issue. And I think that's what Gen Z is going to have the most issue with.
Yeah, I really think this is going to be kind of a painful run for her, just because of who's going to be coming into power and who's leaving it. The way she thinks is kind of a dying breed in a way. Not many people think like that. So when we get to be at the power level that they are currently, we're going to see her really get tested, I think, because she does not envelop anything that Gen Z does. And so, as I said, we're going to be coming into power, and I think it's going to be it's an interesting choice either way, because they're just, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Amy Coney Barrett are just so completely different and on this separate side of things.
If I could add to that, I think that's the main issue, because when Merrick Garland was denied hearings and they installed Trump's first judge, he didn't actually shift the balance of the court. A conservative replaced a conservative. Same when they installed Kavanaugh. The main issue here is the fact that they're having a hard right conservative replace the woman who was a liberal icon. And her rulings will live on as a feminist liberal icon that cannot just simply be thrown out and replaced with someone like her, because there is no one like her. And the fact that they're bringing in Amy Coney Barrett and pretending I believe Republicans were selling shirts that said Notorious ACB, The fact that they're trying to use RBG's memory on stamp it upon Amy Coney Barrett is just disgraceful.
Yeah, if anything, like what you were saying before, she is completely the opposite. And if confirmed, I see her taking and overturning everything RBG fought for her whole life, and overturning rulings and like breaking from precedent. And I think we might see a lot of cases kind of go back to the state courts to be decided if overturned by the Supreme Court.
There was this.
Would be
Also, she also oversees a lot of the old policies like Title IX when it talks about the separation, the non-discrimination of different sexes. A lot of transgender causes were impacted by that because her opinion on that is that at the time it was signed, they never thought that a transgender person would use that law. And that is just an opposite view of how we should move forward. That's just confining the Constitution to its original meaning. But really we have to expand the Constitution because America has grown and shifted so much that at the time it was written, Black people were enslaved. Transgender people were just written off in comedy, and white men who only own land could vote. Now America is is radically different. So we have to transform our views of what the Constitution really.
There was this really good interpretation, which I really like, is Amy Coney Barrett walked through all the doors that RBG opened and then shut it down for everyone behind her. And I think that's just really fitting because it's exactly what it's exactly happening. The only reason that Amy Coney Barrett has a shot at being confirmed for the Supreme Court is because of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And the fact that she's going to damage her memory and do everything she can to overturn all the history that RBG made is, again, just disgraceful.
And Gaffney?
We shouldn't give RGB all of the credit for Amy Coney Barrett's ability to be seated. It would be disrespectful to Sandra Day O'Connor. But I think it would be irresponsible if we pretended that Gen Z is a unified voice in politics. You know, we are, in general, more socially conservative, but let's not pretend or ignore all of the staunchly conservative Gen Z who are very reflective of Amy Coney Barrett in that while she is a woman, she participates in. And now we've got staunchly conservative Gen Z who, while they are young and will have to live with the consequences of things like climate change and increasing violence, they will participate in perpetuating these crimes. They aren't ready to.
Yeah, and you know, I think that is a passed down thing because it's common that you're going to see a Gen Z conservative. And so I believe, you know, that's passed down from parents and, you know, it depends on where you grew up and how you grew up. But and you're right. I mean, Gen Z we do tend to be more socially liberal, but you're right. There are, you know, conservative Gen Z. We're going to get into our third topic for tonight. So while we're talking about Gen Z, how do you guys think Gen Z views the pandemic going on right now? Do you think that we're taking it seriously? We recently got kind of crapped on by the media for going out and partying, even though that really wasn't people in our age group. So what's everyone's opinion on this?
I think it's really a large spectrum. So as someone on a college campus right now, I know people who are taking it very seriously, following social distancing guidelines, wearing a mask where required. And I also know people who aren't necessarily following the rules and aren't taking it seriously. And I think kind of like how our politics vary, like people believe different things, and I'm tending to see a lot of people who fall under like the more conservative spectrum of politics taking social distancing less seriously, and because of what the president is saying and what he said to the people who.
Also, I think that like there's two different angles we can look at this as well, where we see that continuation of our generation's fear of what's been on, whether that's us being the gun violence generation of so many people going into our schools, shooting and killing our peers, that gives us a fear of our future. And also when it comes to climate change, it's a fear of our future. Whenever we read a book about the Earth, we're going to see at the last page, well, we only have 11 years to start taking action before we start seeing irreversible tipping points. And now with COVID-19, this is a direct impact and direct that fear that we have and anxiety that we have around our future. And also another perspective you can, for the more politically active young people that are on this call right now, if we've been in a meeting with elected official, a lot of times they've been saying that, well the government can't move fast in situations. But now we're seeing that that wasn't the case at all. It really is just the lack of their moral clarity and political leadership to start taking action and start introducing policies that will safeguard our future. And we aren't seeing that right now, but what we're experiencing in this pandemic is that it's not their inability, but their unwillingness. And that's what the mindset shift is coming out of COVID-19, is advocating for a just recovery plan, where we don't continue to see stratification of Americans' income and actually see it go back to recover our economy and recover our communities and allow for not just growth, but also development in the communities that have been left behind in the decades that have come past.
All right, y'all. So we're going to take 5 real quick. We'll see you right back, or we'll see you back right after this. that break real quick. So I'm asking everybody here, what do you expect to be? What do you think? And what does it
gonna see that. But really, the reaction is to not just fall into Trump and try to be the anti-Trump, but actually just talk about the policies and talk about what he's doing. And when Biden rambles, just have like talking points that you say, like say he goes on about his family and takes personal attacks. Like say like you can say anything I can say a lot about your family, and you can say whatever you want about my family, but we're all one American family, and just talk about the unity of America and talk about how we have to move forward and not just continue to look back on the wrongdoings that America's done.
Yeah.
So that's why
I love to just look forward at this debate instead of,
and he needs better sound bites because Trump is going to cut him off every other second.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're going to need some good editing then. Yeah. So Sophia, what do you think?
Yeah, I would love to see a real political debate where we're talking about policy and not just fishing for sound bites. I think it would be great if Biden could kind of accept that Trump is going to cut him off all the time and try and just ramble, but really focus on what is important to him. And I think the taxes are an interesting thing that Biden will be able to use to talk about his own policy. So talk about how Trump hasn't paid taxes as much as average American family has, and use that to kind of push his own policy and talk about why he thinks he's the better candidate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the taxes are a pretty good entry into everything economy-wise. We know that they have a lot of different views on taxation and who should pay their fair share. So the fact that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes, and that's when he actually paid taxes, is going to be a really good way for Joe Biden to get into taxation, and even if not attacking Donald Trump directly for evading taxes, just actually talking about how the need to tax people who earn a lot of money, a higher tax bracket than what we're currently doing. Because a lot of Biden's plans are going to require that money, and he's committed not to tax middle-class people. So he needs to explain where that money is coming from. And I think that going after the rich, in a way, will help him there.
And Justin?
Like everyone else said, I want to see policy from Biden tonight. I mean, we've seen a lack of policy from Trump, whether it's his actual platform or it's his rallies. He doesn't come up with policy. So I want to hear solid, concrete ideas from Biden that Trump can attack him, he can attack his family all he wants, but he's able to pivot the question and the answer to say, I think Sophia was the one that said it, you can attack my family all you want, and we need to be focusing on the bigger issues at hand. But in terms of what I'm expecting, I think, and this is something I wanted to focus on too, is that Trump has been all over the place when setting the bar for how Biden is going to present tonight. At first we went, he's not going to be able to form an answer, this and that, to I want him to take a drug test, to I want to search his ear before he gets on the stage. And I don't understand why he's setting the bar so low, because we know that Biden's a good debater and he's going to come out there and he's going to have these solid policy issues, and Trump's just going to look bad next to Biden. And that's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I'm expecting for tonight.
If I can add to that, I think there's a clear precedent of incumbents performing relatively poor at their first debate. So I think by lowering the bar so much, Donald Trump's not helping himself, he's actually hurting himself. Because we know he's not going to be the best debater here, because generally the incumbent performs poorly. What is only going to happen is if Biden can come out and not fall on his face and say a complete sentence, he won the debate. Just because they've been saying that he's an incompetent guy with dementia for the past 6-8 months. And at this point, they're just trying to explain Trump's loss preemptively. They're saying, oh, he has something in his ear. Oh, he's using performance-enhancing drugs. Because they know there's no reasonable person who will believe that a guy with dementia can go ahead and just own that debate, which is what Joe Biden's going to do. So it's just... Go ahead.
No, I think what you're saying is completely what Biden does really well is he appeals to the average American through stories and through personal experiences. And if he can ignore all the noise and ignore the chaos around him and just focus on his storytelling and explaining his policy in a way that really touches the hearts of the American people, he could do really well tonight. And I think as long as he kind of sticks to what he's good at and doesn't try and get into the back and forth yelling, I think he's going to do a really solid job.
And I think that is what he's going to stick to when he's talking one-on-one with the average American, the average into the camera and tell a story about how he's been there before and he's suffered these hardships before. Then Trump can throw out all the insults and that he wants, and it's just nothing's going to stick.
But this is
when they also talked about Hillary Clinton when they paired him up with Trump. A lot of times they said that she was a good listener, but the biggest difference now they say that Biden is a big person who always has great stories and develops empathy with people when he talks with them. So that empathy paired with chaos doesn't really match up when you have that debate. It's just going to be, oh, I really gravitate toward Biden, and Trump just seems like a really unstable person when we talk about policies, and he doesn't have a concrete plan for it.
I mean, my question still is Donald Trump going to follow around Joe Biden throughout the stage like he did Hillary Clinton? Because we know, I think their performance tonight is simply going to draw even starker contrast between the candidates. We know that Joe Biden can talk to regular people, and we know that he can empathize and feel what other people are feeling. When we know that is just Donald Trump, that is not Donald Trump's forte. We know that he is at his best when he's being bombastic, when he has an audience that is applauding what he says, and he's not getting that tonight. Tonight is just going to be Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Chris Wallace asking questions. So I think we're in for probably, I won't even say probably, we're in for the starkest difference between these two people. And I think most people are going to walk out knowing who they're voting for. Most people already know who they're voting for. But that 14% who still doesn't, they're probably going to walk out knowing who they're voting for and knowing why they're voting for that person.
This is obviously a very left-leaning group. You know, we're talking about all of the merits of Joe Biden and all of the detriments of Trump, but it's worth saying Donald Trump was elected the first time. Even if he didn't win the popular vote, it was still relatively close. Still nearly half of Americans empathized with him after seeing him in his first debates. He was able to get through his first debates against Hillary Clinton and land himself in the presidency. We can't pretend that he's this guy who doesn't know how to speak, because he is speaking. It's just in a way that the left doesn't affiliate with. The right will still see him as a powerful voice on that stage. They will understand what he is saying in the way that they want to hear it. He will respond to Joe Biden in the way he's going to respond. And I think what we're actually going to end up seeing tonight is probably just a lot of ableism. We're going to see a lot of personal attacks on them, on what they're capable of, and, well, he slurred his speech, well, he's showing signs of needing things like Adderall or Ritalin, well, he needed this help, well, he needed that, well, he hunches over. If we're going to root all of our opinions about our president based on their ableism, based on their symbol of being a picture of health, then we're going to lose out on the intellectualization. Even if Joe Biden presents a legitimate, informed, respectable argument, he's still on the stage with someone who has no intention of doing an informed, respectable argument. He's on the stage with someone who is only there to give personal attacks.
Here's the thing, and here's what I think makes the largest difference from 2016. In 2016, you did not have 200,000 people dead. We are in a pandemic where most people know someone who has either been infected or has died of COVID-19. And those people have mostly died because of the mishandling of the disease by the Trump administration. And I think this is something that Biden will hammer in and will play to, because it is his strength in empathizing with those people and making them know that he feels their pain. And Donald Trump is simply unable to do that. So generally, I would agree with you. I think his style appeals to a lot of people. But in this specific environment that we're in right now, I don't think that bombastic is going to help him. I think it's actually going to hurt him, because people want leadership. They want something stable they can gravitate to and someone who can pull us out of the hole we're in. And I believe Joe Biden offers that. Just people know who he is. They know how he behaves. He's been in politics for so long that everyone knows Joe Biden's story. And they know that he will lead the way that he acts in general. So I just think that this is going to be a different year than 2016.
It's almost like...
Oh, go ahead, Sophia.
Yeah. I think it's almost like you have two different competing emotions. Biden is pulling at the strings of sadness and loss. And Trump, as he did in 2016, is really pulling at the strings of like fears in the American people, in a specific population of the American people, bringing out xenophobia and hatred and racism. And I think we're going to see a lot of kind of competing emotions.
And also, when you see what Trump's campaign is, it says promises made, promises are great. That conversation can't be had anymore because of the fact that we have, like Santiago said, 200,000 Americans that have died. And this isn't the America that people want to be in. And when his whole slogan in 2016 was, "Oh, America was so bad. This is a system that we're in. I'm coming in to clean the swamp." Well, the swamp is still here. He's been in for 3.5 years. And why haven't we seen any cleanup happening? And he doesn't have a pedestal to stand on anymore. He doesn't have anything to say. And we're going to see a massive shift in what people think.
Before we wrap up, because I know Ryan's going to kill me for jumping in, I just want to say that you're completely right, and that's exactly what I mean. Donald Trump's style works perfectly when you're running as an outsider. It doesn't work when you're the incumbent, because the buck stops with the president. And right now he's the president. He can't blame others for his mishandlings. Ryan, to you.
All right, y'all. Well, I think we had a really good, educated conversation about all this today. It was super fun. I really loved having all of you. Before we wrap up, though, I just wanted to say thank you all again for taking the time to listen in. Without people like you supporting us every single day, we would not be able to do what we're doing. We're here to make sure that Gen Z knows what's going on in the political world and can make an educated decision in this upcoming election. Gen Z has the chance to change the political landscape forever, and it all starts with turning out to vote. To learn more about how to register to vote, who the candidates are, any other information you may need, please visit our votersoftomorrow.org. Also, if you're able, we would greatly appreciate any amount that you can donate, please. It's just the donate button in the top right of our website. We rely on donations from people like each one of you who believe in what we're doing, and to be able to reach the largest amount of Gen Z possible. So if you can please consider donating, we would really, really appreciate it. I want to thank Santiago, Sophia, Jerome, Justin, and Gaffney for joining me today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Thanks, Ryan.
As I said, I think we really had a great conversation. This was super fun. Once again, we apologize for the technical problems, and next time will be better, just like it always is. We will catch y'all after the debate. Bye, everyone.
Bye.